Now let's go ahead and take a look at a model that's completely different. This starts going into a whole other category. These are battery powered, but you have to put your own batteries. They're not rechargeable. They get into a much smaller eraser. It really is really nice to have this for the control that you gain, the feeling of it in your hand. You can do some nice things. I have been hesitant in the past because of a couple little problems with them that I think if you're careful, you could still consider this. This is what's included in the package. It has the batteries that come with it. It has a couple different types of erasers, and I'm not sure what both of them are used for. It has a little cap that you use to put the eraser in, and the cap is what is actually what I was concerned about, and I'm still concerned about it. I really want to just kind of warn you that this can also cause some damage on your paper. Now, these are battery operated, but you have to supply your own batteries. They're not rechargeable, but it gives you a tremendous amount of freedom in using it. They fit nicely into your hand, more of an extension of your hand and your fingers, where the others are a little more cumbersome, maybe a little more difficult to balance. But one of my main concerns has always been with these smaller versions is that there's a shorter eraser. This is quite short. It's going to wear down very quickly. And unless you're really paying attention, you could very easily damage your picture by having this metal cap actually, spin on the paper surface, your drawing surface. But this shoves back in. If you saw what I did here, you actually take this and you stick it in the end, and it puts more and more pressure on here. And then, again, these are pretty universal type switches where either hand could be used just as easily. And you can see what would happen if I wanted to extend this out a little more. I don't have a whole lot of eraser to use. And then if you're trying to get every little bit of use out of that eraser, you're going to get right back in here to this little cap, which you could damage your paper on. If you're extremely careful and willing to take the risk, this is a wonderful eraser. It seems like it's quite durable, has good revolutions, a little noisy, but I think it's possible that we could use this as an option. The next model I want to show you is this Durent. I haven't actually used this, but I'm interested in my first impression too. So this is the package that you would see, and this is what it's like to take it out of the package. You have to put your own batteries in it, and then naturally you're going to have to sharpen this. I'm quite concerned about this isn't very tight. It seems like it will almost fall out. But let's just see if it will hold it tight enough where we can go ahead and grind this tip out. Look at that. Now see, this is something they haven't taken into consideration because most people aren't thinking about having to sharpen the eraser. But it's critical for us. We don't want to use it any other way. So right away, let's go ahead and discard this one. I don't think this one would be a good one to use. I want to show you this model that Statler has put out. Another one of these smaller versions. It's a battery operated. Again, some of these might be a good consideration because there's just such a flow and it's just like it's part of you. I've already sharpened the eraser, and one of the things that I noticed right away in putting this in the cap is that this is very, very snug. You remember that Durent we just looked at? It was so sloppy that it even came out when we were trying to run it. Now again, I realize that most of these companies aren't thinking about us putting a point on ours. I don't know why anybody would want to use it otherwise, but anyway, we want to. So we don't want to have something where we can't even sharpen it, and that cap is going to come out. And then again, when you put this back in here to lengthen out your eraser, you want to be very careful that you try to get this balanced. And you can tell when you look at this thing, you'll see that vibrating on the end. We don't want that. So just be patient and try and find a position that will allow you to get that into a place where it is again in balance. And if you need to adjust it a little bit, you could actually sharpen it again and take that wobble or that vibration off by reforming the point and just getting it to its honed down to, again, a good balanced revolution. But it's a little noisy, but I think this is a big improvement over the one we just looked at. So let's go on to the next one. This model is a Helix Technical. I think it's a little bigger, uses a bigger battery. There's 2 of them. And again, very portable. Looks like it will conform to the hand. Let's go ahead and find out. I went ahead and put batteries in it, and I ran into one problem. And it might be enough to have you say, whoa, I don't want to do that. Look at how difficult it is to get in here. I'm going to use a dime. You probably use a screwdriver or whatever to try and pry this open. It is not easy. The way this little tab connects on there, they just haven't allowed for any movement. You have to be able to get that pressed in. I guess once you get used to it, you might be able to do it, but you have to be able to pry it up as well as push that in. So maybe a screwdriver might work. So let's go ahead and see what this is like. If a child was using it or something, it might have a little difficulty. Let's extend this eraser out. It seems like this cap, fits fairly tight, but this is also obviously a different size eraser. It's one of the things you want to be careful of when you're buying your erasers. Just don't assume that they're all going to fit in each model. Let's go ahead and boy, you really have to push hard down on this trigger, or whatever you want to call it. This is very interesting because there's several things, like just taking that cap off or putting the batteries in, the lid off. That was very difficult, and this is very difficult to push. You have to put so much pressure. I am really bearing down on this. I'm having to put a tremendous amount of effort into keeping this going. It changes how it fits in your hand and everything because of that. So I am already very unimpressed. Besides that, it takes a smaller eraser, which isn't a common size for some of the other ones to use. So I could go ahead and sharpen this down, but I am already getting fatigued, let's say, having to put so much pressure on this. And if you wanted to do a full head of hair or beards or whatever it is, I think you'd be a little bit disappointed after just a little bit. Some of you ladies out there and children, I don't think you'd really want to have to be pressing this hard, and maybe some of you would not be able to do it. Maybe you have arthritis or whatever and it wouldn't work out too well. So I think right from the start, I am quite disappointed. It looked like it might be a good possibility, but I wouldn't even try this. What I want to do now is I want to take the opportunity to take the ones that we think are a little better, eliminate those ones that we didn't think were so good, and now let's go ahead and compare them to my Elite, the one with the pink eraser that I've enjoyed so much. Let's see if we can come up with something similar. Might have to make some adjustments, but that's just the way it's going to be. It's the nature of the game in this business and many others. They keep eliminating products. So let's go ahead and take my pink eraser. What I want to remind you about, if you haven't used one of these and you're just thinking about purchasing one, make sure, again, use our tapered stroke technique where you put the heel of your hand down and make sure it's stable. We don't want this going all over the place unless you absolutely have to. But let's go ahead and then lower this down until it makes our contact. What happens when you have this soft rubber, it has a tendency to vary the width of your line. But this is that pink, more solid eraser. So let's go ahead and just use this as a standard. I'm doing it so lightly that I'm not touching the paper every time. But that's a good example, I think, of something we can compare the other ones to. Let's take this 2850 C that's no longer manufactured anymore either, and just see how it compared with the softer eraser. This Magic Rub eraser, again, is kind of gushy. It will really be susceptible to the amount of pressure you're putting on as to how wide the line will be. So it'll work, but you see that this is getting a little wider, and it has a tendency to vary a little bit. With practice, you can probably get it down to where it won't be too bad, or you can go ahead and clean it up with your eraser, with your pencil, and just clean up that edge. Let's go ahead and take this next larger one, the Statler corded eraser, and let's just see how that works. Remember, this is that one that runs so smooth. It seems to be so precision. But again, you have a certain amount of influence by this weight out here, so that might have something to do with how well you can keep a consistent pressure. I think it's very nice. I think that was a very nice line. Now let's go ahead and take this Sakura. The Sakura, one of the things that I do, I'm a little concerned about is they have their own eraser, a little different diameter, so I'm not really excited about the consistency of their eraser. This trigger is quite a bit down here on the end, so it doesn't allow you to get out here with as much of our flow and grace place on the pencil that we're so used to using. We have to get it down here. That puts that a little more difficult to keep that a consistent pressure. These little erasers are so much more noisy, aren't they? Okay, well that wasn't too bad. Again, it has a thick and thin to it, but I could have that happen even with my pink eraser if I'm not careful. So it's just going to take some practice. Let's take this last one, and this is the Statler, the little battery operated Statler, and the trigger is back just a little farther. Look at the comparison here, and you can see that just that much changes the angle that I'm going to be able to have this on the paper. And I like that a little better in that it's given me an opportunity to graze it a little more. I think that was quite nice, actually. Let's do one more. Now all of this is going to depend on the point you have on your eraser, so don't hesitate when you're using these to tune these up a little bit. Go ahead and refine the point and give yourself every opportunity to have that nice clean stroke. So this is probably the cheapest one, and this is probably not far behind, and we'll go ahead and put up the pricing to give you an idea what you're looking at least a range. And I think we've got some pretty good choices. I wish we had a little larger option for a chargeable one, but that's not going to be the case for right now. So this might give you a good idea, and I hope you have a lot of fun drawing and find some opportunities to really accomplish some of these fine little things we're trying to do with our pictures to just finish them off. So have fun drawing.